Is it actually difficult to install your own pistol sights? Hello, this is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com, and today I want to speak about installing your own sights onto your own pistol. Now, the reason why this is important is that if you've kind of got into the gun world and you're now interested in tinkering around and trying out different things, this could actually get really, really expensive. One of the local ranges to me actually charges $50 per sight installation. Besides for that, there's also a waiting period, getting to the range, making sure it's organized properly, making sure they don't lose your things, and a bunch of other details that actually do happen, and it's just something to be aware of. So being able to do it in the comfort of your own home and being able to try out different sites that you might be able to have without the charge of $50 per time, only to realize that the site you chose was incorrect and then you have to redo the process and cost even more, is well worth investing in a sight pusher to be able to do that. Now, we're going to be looking today at one from a company called Accucraft. Now, this was sent to me by Accucraft, but I'm going to be comparing it to one that I've been using up until this point to tell you why I do actually prefer this one over the other one that I got. Now, the other one that I got works fine. It works fine. However, this does have additional features that make it much easier to be able to deal with than the one, again, I will be showing you and comparing, so you could end up making your own informed decision. Now, before I go into too much detail, I'm actually going to do a sight change for you guys so you can actually see what the process is like, and you might get a better idea of why these parts are very nice and why it makes it easier to install sights if you're using higher quality parts. So if you look right over here, I'm going to be installing new sights on this Zafiri Precision slide. If you can see that from the factory, it looks like it came just slightly misaligned. So that's not perfect, which means you always want to be careful that even if it's coming from the factory, things are being done correctly. So your aim will be correct when you're firing. So it uses kind of a standard rear sight that we're going to be able to remove and then remove the front sight to be able to replace it. So let's get this installed and we'll show you what the mount looks like when we're putting this in. So I got the Accucraft sight pusher over here, and you can see these little recesses over here that should be able to fit right into the jaws to be able to hold it nice and tight in place. I probably would recommend getting soft jaws attachment so that your vise is not going to damage the coating of the metal, but that's pretty much it, just to be able to get it installed, and like it fits very nicely. Now, you can see over here there are two oversized knobs and a center knob that's right over there. Now, the point of that is once these are all loosened up, you can just lift it straight up and your slide will go into that area right over here where you'll then be able to move it back and forth with this dial. So it makes it very, very smooth to be able to use and to be able to run. So let's get the sight set up in there so you can see what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the slide and I'm going to remove the barrel and guide rod because that's not something that's necessary for the installation. And if you look right over here, there are these two large oversized knobs that are able to go all the way back. And what that does is that it loosens up the whole system to be able to open up, and then you should be able to install right over there, put your slide in, and then what you're going to do now is you're going to go down with each other, and you just want there to be enough space where it's above the actual slide. And I'm going to tighten all these knobs down. Now, these are what all these knobs are for. All these knobs are going to make sure, you want to make sure that they're as even as possible. They're going to be able to center and make sure the slide is centered as much as possible so that when you have everything tightened up, it will make sure that it's installing it correctly. So I'm just going to keep tightening all four to make sure that they're correctly in place. And this is going to make sure that it's a very strong mounting system for the slide so that it won't wiggle and really, really hold nicely in place. Now, this is like what I mentioned. This oversized knob is very convenient to be able to have because what I'm going to be able to do is I'm actually going to be able to just have the sight push all the way out, and you see how this part is moving, and it's just going to be using pressure to be able to get the rear sight to just move out of place. Now, you can see that I'm still using a bit of pressure because these are usually installed very, very snug. And I'm going to show you after you see this and how it's actually able to move out of place, the difference in the older one that I had and why it was actually such a pain to deal with. So I'm going to speed this up for you and we'll see this come out. So there you go. That's the rear sight being able to be fully removed, and it was just taken out of there. So I'm just going to compare this to the other one that I have to show you what that looks like. So this is an option I've been using for quite a while, and the biggest things you'll probably notice from this already is that this piece over here, first of all, comes out very easily because it's not properly really mounted in that spot, so it gets a little bit annoying to make sure that things are set up correctly. And you can see it's using far less parts to be able to make sure that it will function properly. The biggest difference will be this right over here. So that's what's being able to remove the actual rear sight. And you can see even with the oversized handle like this one, which I really did like being able to use, this one is a real pain to be able to deal with because you're using a very thin bar to be able to actually pull that correctly. Now, you could obviously add things to it, but we're talking about coming straight from the factory. This is the options you have available. And then it requires that it pretty much gets put into a mounted location. So you can see the hole over here and the hole over here. That's really asking you to just mount it onto somewhere. Now, you could also mount this onto a vise, but it might not be as secure because this has a ledge to make sure that it doesn't pass a certain distance for when you're going to be installing it. So if I remove this right over here, you will see that there is the actual recess and then a blockage so it won't go up and down if it accidentally moves. So I can just put that in and it locks it in place. This one doesn't have that as an option because again, it's pretty much asking you to design it in a way where it would be mounted onto one surface and you're pretty much done with it. So being able to use a system like this that has 4 areas that can be locked down and secured, as well as 2 areas on top to make sure it's fully pressed down, as well as another option to make sure the slide will not wiggle in place. Having an oversized bar like this really makes it easier to be able to install it. And you can see how everything is moving very, very smoothly. The entire system is made from either 60-65 or 70-75, depending on the different areas. So it's all high quality parts. And this part right over here is also made of aluminum. So the entire thing is like nicely aluminum, made in aluminum construction, and you feel a lot of comfort when wiggling it through. So now let's install the other rare side that I wanted to replace it with and see how easy of a process that is. Now here's the rare side that I'm planning on being able to install. A life hack that you should be able to know is that before you install sites, it's always ideal to leave these in maybe the freezer for around 20 to 30 minutes. That'll kind of make the metal contract a little bit, so it makes the installation easier. And then as it warms up, it'll kind of like fit into place a little bit better. I didn't do that for this because I wanted to see, even without doing any kind of proper setup, what it would be like and how difficult the system would be like to be able to reinstall it into the slide. So I'm going to put it in place as best as I can, and then we'll just get it started to see what how that goes. So as you can see, the site is now installed and it does work and function properly. So we're also going to be able to remove and replace the front sight, but this tool is primarily designed for the rear sight to be able to remove and be replaced. You might have been able to see that even with this proper setup, it could be very much a struggle to make sure to get it in place. And that's because if these are very tight fit and it goes on very tight, then also it means that it'll be able to be removed. It would be very difficult to be removed, which is what you want. You want it to be very, very tight fit. This is also an example of why it would be beneficial to have it in the freezer. It will make that process a little bit easier, but I kind of wanted to go as difficult as possible just to see if I was able to be done. And again, a big comparison that I want to give it to you is some of the cheap ones that you're able to get from Amazon, that it does work, but it's going to be a much more big of a strain to be able to get it done properly and to do it safely also, because you're going to whack your fingers into everything possible. So having 2 main areas where it's locking down the slide from the top, 4 areas that are locking all 4 parts of the slide to really make sure it's in place, and then an oversized knob, this entire thing being aluminum, being able to be mounted onto a vise, which is a non-permanent modification to your workshop, I think is a really great option. I'm going to leave more information in the description down below if you're interested in checking it out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.